What is up, Generals? This is Fiasco. We're back with Ultimate General Civil War, and this is the J&P Rebalance mod. We're headed on, Legendary Campaign. We're headed into the Battle of First Bull Run. All of this was recorded beforehand, so I do apologize. There's not my usual camp screen preamble. But we go into this battle with 3 infantry units. First, second, third infantry, all at 1,300 men. So I bumped them up from the usual 1,250. And the thought process there is that these are longer battles, and I just need enough beef, so to speak, to take me into the next, take me into the late part of the battle. Additionally, we started a new artillery unit, second artillery. They have the 3-inch ordnance gun, and we have the existing Napoleon unit as well. So we're going with a kind of a boring, not a very fancy build for this battle here. Solid, boring foundation, and ultimately we're pretty happy with how everything goes. So we deploy everything back in such a way that we turn the cannons off, back in such a way that we're far out from the river, and the game gives us a blessing with second US, this battery here. So it immediately changes my battle plan. You got to roll with this sort of thing when the game gives you, when it's Christmas like this. I was planning on holding everything back, being very cagey, but they gave me this opportunity that I had to jump on with this first unit of artillery here. So I swarm forward with 1st and 2nd infantry, and I need to put at least one volley. It's kind of a race of can I get firepower onto the unit before it puts canister into my guys or something. And I know Napoleons aren't really optimized for that particular function, but this kind of an opportunity is not the kind of thing I'm going to have multiples of in the course of this battle, and so I shoot, to maximize the window when I've got it, and then back up before too much counter damage comes my way. And mostly it works out. So then we have 3rd Infantry deployed here in the north, and they're kind of guarding the ford across that river. I get 2nd kind of on dedicated counter battery duty, and then I've got 1st on counter infantry duty, 1st Artillery on counter infantry duty. And essentially this dictates how we play the opener for the rest of the battle. We get a little lucky early on vis-a-vis enemy artillery, and the opener here essentially is, how do you manage their guns? How do you manage the guns? Because the guns dictate what the Union is capable of for the rest of the battle. It's just, I think it's important to keep them from spiraling out of control. It's a momentum thing. So we're deployed at exactly the point that we can be, where if someone's coming at me across the bridge, we'll be able to shoot them, but we're going to have limited feedback on the way, on the limited counterfire on the back. We get lucky a second time with regard to the artillery. It marches right up to the bridge. I think probably because these are 12-pound howitzer guns, maybe. And they just get way the hell too far forward for their own good. And so a second time, I basically just get to blast them, because 2nd New York and 2nd Ohio both decide, maybe this is too much. So 1st and 2nd Infantry have a chance to just get rifle fire on the battery, which never happens. 3rd Confederate Infantry is deployed on the north, countering 1st Ohio's attempt to challenge across the ford. And I don't know what happens here either. The return fire is very weak from 1st Ohio. It's present, but it's really weak, and it's really, I don't know what happened. It's slow to come, it's slow to hit, it's not very accurate. They're in the river, I get that part. We have good terrain, I get that part, but it's shocking to me how, I don't know how that happened. Now, one of the other things about my build here is that, I say like, oh, this battle went much better than it did when I played it earlier, when I only had the 3-inch ordnance and I only had, I had 3 infantry and a sniper unit versus 3 infantry and 2 artillery. One of the other things that made that battle different is that I had not successfully completed the battle at Newport, or the skirmish at Newport, and so the army was 7% larger. And I don't know if that means, additional units, or if the units are just 7% bigger. I presume that they're probably 7% larger than they would otherwise be. But yeah, I mean, that made a big difference in terms of their willingness to just take a volley and keep on coming. I mean, there's a number of times in the failed playthrough of the battle where they just wouldn't care. It was like I was shooting them with strong language and, distasteful opinions. And by comparison here, the units are big. They're bigger than mine, but they're not unapproachably larger than mine. Now, later they get 2 brigades on the right and I think 3 brigades on the left that are all closing on 4,000 men. But you have this weird instance in that then, by the time that happens, I have a shitload of these smaller brigades. I have Jackson's brigade Jackson's division, and Stonewall's units are all, I don't know, 500 men, and they have shitty Springfields, and they've got you've got no control over the perks. So 2/3 of them have the charge perk, and all this kind of crap. The thing is like a 450 man unit, if it charged, at a 4,000 man Union brigade, even if it was winning, it would still just evaporate in no time. So I mean, I don't know. Yeah. So here's the opening phase of the battle. We get away from this sector of the battle just incredibly unscathed. Way better off than I think we have any reasonable expectation of being. And I think a large part of it comes down to the enemy artillery likely is 12-pound howitzers or 6-pounders. And it feels compelled to just close the gap as much as possible. Also, an interesting thing that occurs here. Notice those units, we just lost sight to them. Now, we're on the recon eye. We're on the appropriate side of the hill, and yet I can't see them. That's really confusing for me. That's really interesting and confusing. Why and how we just lost line of sight to those units. I can't really kind of gather why that would be. But I mean, there it is. They just disappeared. So I think you need to keep someone on the appropriate side of the river, I guess. And just keep that in the back of your mind. 3rd Infantry is doing a pretty good job holding the northern ridge. And then we get this interesting situation. So 2nd Infantry, they managed to cross the river. Just, in the water. Swam across it, I guess. And they get 1 volley into my artillery unit and kill my colonel, or wound him. I forget which one it was. So I thought that was patched out. I thought that was not supposed to be able to happen. And here we are. It's happening again. So I kind of freak out because I've seen the devastating effect of mass rifle fire on artillery batteries. And our 1st artillery is not a very large unit. So I scramble them out of there, and I move north with 2nd to check. 2nd Confederate Infantry to check 2nd New York, while also charging 3rd into the scouts. Now that's initially kind of a worrying maneuver. You would think that's a bad idea because they're melee cavalry. You should not charge them. But the thought process in my mind is there's 200 of them, or 250 or something, and there's a little under 1,300 of me. So F it. Let's get in there. You're still in pretty good order. So that's exactly what we do. We kill a little over 100 of them, shoot one with a gun, and the remainder walk away. I have to kind of get 2nd Infantry point blank with 2nd New York here. And then, again, I don't really know what's happening with 1st Ohio. I don't know what's going on with them here, if they're bugged out or if they're caught on the water or if what's going on. I should be being shot at. I should be, I should not be able to just sit here and trade blows with 2nd New York while 1st Ohio watches. I get it. The Midwest isn't always the biggest fan of the East Coast, but come on, guys. We're supposed to be same teamsies, right? I'm also, while this is happening, a little nervous that 2nd Ohio may be in a pretty good position to fire across the river and get a flanking shot on 1st Infantry or 2nd Infantry. So I've got both of the artillery units firing at it in the flank, and then I think I even end up moving first up to try and get some flank fire and just dissuade them from, pursuing that particular course of action. But broadly speaking, you probably shouldn't expect your experience of 1st Manassas to go kind of exactly like this. There's some weird crap, like the artillery just bum rushing the bridge, and 2nd New York like crossing the river in a way it shouldn't, and a bunch of crap like that occurs that hopefully won't occur in your particular instance of the mod of the game. Even at Legendary, I don't think you can count on 1st Ohio bugging out on the river, if indeed that is exactly what has occurred. But they've just been standing there letting me take care of the other unit, so I have to imagine they've bugged out. Maybe. I don't know. I don't really have any idea what's going on there. So we are kind of collecting the units that the AI commander offers as for you to utilize in the rest of this battle. And I'm also trying to maximize my kills on 1st Ohio and 2nd New York. We have them in the water, may as well get the best we can out of the deal. I'm also doing the same here to 2nd Ohio. I'm hoping like maybe I can get so far as to shatter one of these units, because that would do, I think, wonders for the momentum of the battle from here on out. I mean, killing their artillery is already a huge boom in terms of making the first wave. Here we go. So I shoot the crap out of 1st Ohio, and something shakes them out of their slumber, and they decide that forward, running or charging forward, is the correct answer into the teeth of 2 different brigades' infantry's volley guns. But, hey, whatever, more power to them, I suppose. If they really want to push this particular attack, they are allowed to do so. There's one interesting fact of them retreating the way they do, not across the ford. It almost immediately renders my ability to hold this side of the river suspect. It's not that I don't think 3rd and or 2nd Infantry are up to the task of going toe-to-toe with 1st Ohio. It's that a significant portion of the desirability of this Confederate defensive position is the fact that to get to me, they have to go either over a bridge or over a ford. And if you take that off the table, if they can approach over open ground or of their choosing, it's not nearly as attractive. And I'm trying to look at, like, what do I want to do with Hampton's Legion and B and Bernard and maybe not Bernard, whatever, the Pelham, Imbledon, those units that are down there. What do I do? What do I do with them? And I just don't know. I want the map to expand, because I don't actually want to defend this copse of trees on the corner, the lip of the river. And the reason I don't want to do that is that the musket ranges are longer in the Rebel than they are in the vanilla game. So in the vanilla game at 300, which is the effective range of most muskets, you can basically position yourself in the woods and then have a pretty good idea that you're going to hit most of them in the water. Additionally, the 42s are slightly more effective in the hands of 0-star units. Both of these factors combine to make fighting in this copse of trees where B and part of Hampton's Legion is currently posted, it makes it more attractive. And the fact that everybody can shoot 400 renders that less attractive because now you're trading fire over the water, and to get far enough back to guarantee that you're shooting them in the water, you're basically already out of the copse of woods, or if you're not out, you're out far enough that you don't have the ability to easily support it with artillery. So what that means is that, to me anyway, I'd rather just let the enemy have that bit of terrain, cross the river there and everything else, and fight them in a manner where I can set up a line. And when the map expands, you'll see kind of where I set that line up. So yeah, that's kind of what's coming, and I don't think it's going to take the full 2 hours to get there. But we see Keys is one of the new units that has joined, and he's 3,600 dudes. But they're not really pushing the north. And you'll notice I've retreated to collapse my position down around the bridge, a stone bridge. And the reason I've done that is, again, First Ohio has successfully crossed the river, and I don't want to lose the men or spend the men that would be expent in fighting them off now. Fighting them off from, an open field skirmish. And again, I think what happens here is 2nd New York crosses the river at the bridge, and I get ready to shoot him, and he goes invisible, and I'm very, very confused as to why that's happening. Really, really confused, because he should be visible, and he's not, and I don't get it. It's whatever. It's fine. We still shoot the crap out of him. Because I really don't care about this point about beating up on 2nd New York. At this point, I really want Keys to try and cross the river. I want a couple of free volleys on him, because a 3,600 man brigade is intimidating. He's larger than. He's like about the same size as my entire infantry command is that one brigade. Here comes first. Yeah, like my entire infantry force is roughly the same size as Key's one brigade. And I know there's, I believe Sherman is one of the Union brigades. He's the same size. There's some ones that come in from the left. What? Franklin, Wilcox? I've played this game too many times when I like know the name of the AI units that come into this battle. Yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is, like, these units are massive. They're huge. And it's intimidating to try and face them. So we rapidly turn to face, 3rd and 2nd, pour crazy volleys into the 1st, and they don't seem to care. They just take it. And this is exactly why I didn't want to try and hold the north. Like, yeah, okay, it seems as if they're ineffective at shooting, but the fact that I have a threat to this direction means, to me anyway, that now the north is unholdable. This peninsula is unholdable, and I'd rather have the AI come forward and take the 2nd flag trigger point and then open the map up, while the AI is still walking in off the map edge, while the AI is still tired, while the AI is still spread out. All these things to give me a chance to get my dudes into position. Because I hope that the transition will occur in 17 minutes ish in game. So yeah, we run across the river, and I'm very dangerously clumped up right now. Like, I'm quite nervous about what happens if they tried to get aggressive and attack. Would I be able to throw them back? I think the answer to that question is probably no. Fortunately, the phase triggers, and I'm able to reassess kind of how I want the battle to go into the next phase. And so the way that we're going to do that is we're going to have one brigade guarding each crossing in the north, and my artillery's both of them, I think, and maybe one or two of the AI units. And then the remainder, one of my brigades is going to go to the south, west, where the three arms of the creek kind of meet, left screen-wise of that clump of farmhouses and stuff on the Union side of the river. So I'm going to put a unit over there with the thought process that basically my dudes, I'll just use Stonewall's Corps or Stonewall's division as kind of a meat wall, ablative shields and whatnot. And then I'll have my guys, 3rd Infantry, on the extreme left of the Confederate line, hopefully able to continuously batter in Union flanks as they engage Stonewall's smaller units. And there is definitely an argument to be made where I should instead collapse all of Stonewall's units together into one big kind of blob. I totally can see that argument. It's not super compelling as far as I'm concerned in the moment. The reason I say that is that I'd like the coverage of multiple smaller units rather than one big unit. And the rationale there is that Stonewall's units they're okay. They've got some experience. Some of them have stars, in fact. But you're still looking at a lot of untrained units, and they all have shit rifles or shit muskets. And long story short, you get what I'm saying. Like, I can't rely on them to actually kill anything. But yeah, porters, 3,600 dudes. Can't rely on them to kill anything. And in fairness, like 3,600 is still a lot of guys. But in the other playthrough where I had failed to win at Newport News, they were 4,000 men. And that's an extra, 400 dudes. So I would prefer to have one unit being shot at by like 6 units, right? Where there's just this continuous patterning of ineffectual 1842 fire rather than one big volley of perkless Stonewall units. So that's what we do. We put one unit of Hampton's Legion in the farmhouse, but not actually in the entrenchments in the farmhouse. And we got another unit to support. Basically, each of the two sides of Hampton's Legion are supporting the 1st and 2nd Infantry, respectively. And here's another example. We have a golden opportunity to shoot at their artillery with both B and the other unit, whoever it is. And my guys are so ineffectual at shooting that even 2 brigades firing point blank at that artillery unit barely kill any. And Bartow is the other one. So they're both shooting, plus 2 6-pounder units are both shooting, and admittedly we're getting flanked by their skirmishers. But this is a battle where it's an example of the trope that I'm not a fan of everyone's incompetent except me. I can't rely on 2 1,000-man brigades to white shield an artillery unit. 2,000 men firing at them. I outnumber them 4-1, and they can't even white shield. So I just retreat. I let them hold the line, and again I just decide, okay, all you're gonna do is be a meat shield. All I can rely on you to do is to soak bullets. I don't know. I don't find that terribly exciting. A unit of skirmishers charges at Hampton's Legion. That's really interesting from a why would the AI do this kind of thing. Skirmishers are good in melee. Skirmishers are straight up decent in melee. They make good melee units, and I'm intrigued at the fact that the AI seems to realize that too. I think it bodes well for the aggression of the AI. So immediately I think you can kind of see we're going to be fine on the Confederate right. We're going to be just fine on the Confederate right, and we're going to be probably okay on the Confederate left. Where we're going to continue to face issues is the Confederate middle, and explicitly because of Griffin. I'm going to not have any units that can effectively get to Griffin and hurt him. All of my artillery units are too small. All of my infantry units don't know which end of the gun to shoot bullets out of. It's just going to be this just continuous like comedy of errors, watching them try and figure this out. I mean, and like, I don't have anything to say about it. It's just, it is what it is. So I create this wall of Confederate infantry units with the expectation that 3rd Infantry is going to have to do the lion's share of the killing over there. And it does. It does. So let's watch. I mean, you can watch the rest of the battle play out. But basically what happens now is we're playing keep away. Every time the Union tries to launch a push, they tend to do it, the AI tends to do it in fits and starts, where you get a big push in one part, and then the line's kind of quiet somewhere else. And you get a big push somewhere else, the line's kind of quiet somewhere else. And rinse, wash, repeat, essentially over and over and over again. And I just fail to make any significant major headway in near Stonewall's portion until my troops are able to clear off the threats from the Confederate right. Now this is concerning and nerve-wracking and made me very, very nervous, is Sherman. 3,600 men, 3,500 men, screaming at 1st Infantry, 1st Artillery, Hampton's Legion. Like, there's just charging right up my center, and I've got no meaningful threat except 1st Artillery at point blank, and threatening to charge with 1st Virginia and 1st Infantry, or 4th Virginia and 1st Infantry. Ugh, I do not like the idea of doing that. Like, it is not attractive as far as options are concerned. It's not a good option at all. Jackson's artillery is coming online, at which point in time I'm going to feel as if that portion of the line will largely stabilize, so that's good. Yeah, this is nerve-wracking too. The 1st U.S. Cavalry Battalion comes in there, makes melee contact with 1st Infantry, and threatens to drag me into contact with Sherman. Oh, man. Guys, when I was playing, I was like, it was a real pucker moment. I was just kind of like, woo-hoo-hoo. Are we going to lose our 1st Brigade? Fortunately, we don't, and 1st Artillery, the Napoleon unit, has a couple of chances to canister, along with Pelham, along with 1st Infantry at close range, along with 2nd Artillery. Like, Sherman just takes a real bruising and just doesn't seem terribly concerned. Like, he's fine with it. It's okay. No big deal. You know, 300 men die every other moment in the Civil War, apparently. So here we have the 1st unit kind of routing into the river, and that's Howard on the far left. He's routing, and I'm going to shoot him until he shatters, basically. Meanwhile, we have 4 brigades shooting at Keys, and he seems not terribly surprised or interested by this particular development. I mean, these big bruiser units, these big units are just a real pain. And the fact that I can't rely on this army to do anything is just frustrating. Except, I mean, it stands there. It's up to the task of holding there. But if you asked me to fight this battle with these units and I didn't have access to Fiasco's division, I do not know what we would do. Here's the next wave. This is what I was talking about, fits and starts. Burnside begins to charge and then aborts, and I think it's because I hadn't started trying to cancel that charge yet. He tries to charge and aborts because I guess he becomes aware of other units that are present or something. So, yeah. Yeah, Look at those. Look at those kills on 3rd Infantry. They're new, by the way. They're new for this battle. And they've already got over 1,000 kills. Like, it's one of those situations where one of the interesting things about Legendary is, I think, that as much as the game is tougher, I think you're going to be rewarded with more competent units as a result, because the armies that you're facing are going to be so much larger and better equipped. And so that means that the overall lethality of the game has likely gone up for all parties involved. The confusing play or misplays on the part of the player will almost certainly result in near lethal or catastrophic damage almost immediately, however. I think all of these units end up picking up their second star, or coming very close to doing so at the end of this battle. All of these units have in excess of 3,000 kills at the end of this battle. What that does for stats, efficiency in particular, but also morale, also firearms, and a little bit melee. What that does for the stats of these units is gonna be fascinating. What weapons I pick up off of these units? Are they carrying, and are they carrying Swoorbore 42s, or are they carrying 65? Not 61s, but maybe 55s. Maybe they have Lorenzes. I don't know. That's the thing. The enemy gets better, right? And that's worrisome. But there's an interesting counterpoint to that, is that you get better too because of what you take off of the enemy. And if you play even a little bit smart, you should, at least in these opening battles, have a very positive kill-loss ratio. And that may set you up for a very successful mid-game, which will hopefully set you up for a successful end-game, where by the end of the game, your dudes are wearing the best guns and the best gear, and they've got 3 stars like out the wazoo and all this kind of stuff. Double down with the fact that I did the 3 or 4 training start. Pretty sure 4. Although, hell if I know. We'll see at the end of the battle, maybe. Coupled with the fact that, I've got that training stat. Like, this is an elite army. Or, it's not elite, because it's not small. But what I'm hoping, that much training stat. Okay, let's talk about that in a second. This is interesting on the screen. Wilson has realized the threat 3rd Infantry poses, and is now launching himself at me. I don't have enough firepower present in 3rd to check his attack, even in the river. He's coming in anyway. He doesn't care. So the only play I've got is to retreat, run away. And what does that mean for the flank over here? It means, I think, that things can get messy really quick for the Confederacy if I'm not careful, if I don't keep that shit under control. And I have to. So what I then do is I move up with all those shit brigades that have 1842s and no training, and I move up with them because the 42 is a decent gun at close range. If you get up point blank with someone, it's a fine weapon. Now, to do that, the reason I don't like using them unless I absolutely have to is that to do that, you expose yourself to a great deal of risk on the way in. And, one of the things that makes a successful general, especially in Legendary, is one who is, I hesitate to use the word risk averse, but risk intelligent would be a way that I would say that, like where you're willing to take risks, but as long as they're calculated. So I refuse my flank here with 27th Virginia, and the second version of Standard, and then I get 3rd position in a way to check if Wilcox tries to come in and press the assault on my left. I've got 3rd position in a way where he will get crossways fire, and hopefully 3rd is placed in a way that it will check Wilcox. we'll see. I'm doing a lot of running with that unit. I'm not crazy about that, about burning up the stamina like that, but I think in this instance it's worth it. At this juncture, it is my opinion when I'm playing in the moment, this was a couple of days ago, so do bear with me, that things had largely stabilized. That as long as I didn't let any of Stonewall's units shatter without paying attention, you know, because I know they're going to shatter eventually. Again, it's a calculated risk. I'm using them as meat shields. All they are doing is buying time for 1st, 2nd, 3rd infantry, 1st and 2nd artillery to kill as much of the enemy army as needed in order to win the battle. That's all they're doing is buying time. If they kill anything on their own, great, I guess. So, with that being said, I just need to be careful about units shattering. Because of that, if that happens, that creates a wide gap in my line that I then need to find something to fill it in with. And so you can see I've kind of got a lot of units stacked up double deep, or too deep, with the intention that they provide an immediate safety valve for if the AI charges. I have an immediate reserve to launch into the attack as well. Like as you can see, here's a good example. 27th Virginia is down to 180 some odd dudes. So I swapped them with 5th Virginia. Same thing with Hampton in the farmhouse there. That fulcrum point, that pinion point for my army, for my line, has continued to be the focal point of a lot of Union fire. A lot of hate, blue-clad hate, is coming down on me from that direction. Consequently, I have to cycle a new unit. So I move 4th Virginia up into the farmhouse, and I move 5th Virginia. I guess I end up shimmying Bartow to move into that position, and I move 5th Virginia into the place where Bartow used to be. Here's where we start transitioning ever so gently into the offensive. It is a very... you know what? I apologize. My commentary has been just sort of reactive. So let's talk a little bit about broad objectives, and then we'll talk a little bit again about kind of when you transition, the meta conversation around the battle. I think that's actually an interesting subject. So the hope with the 3 or 4 training start like I chose going into this campaign is that I will have a very high preponderance of 2-star units, and maybe even 3-star units depending on how far things go. What the dream is as I go, I can level econ, I can level recon, I can level, logistics, all that kind of shit. And training is important now while the army's growing, but I don't think it's as important once the army's grown. However, training is still valuable once the army's grown in keeping the army at a certain size. At a certain size, and it makes veterans more effective. It makes every dollar per veteran go farther and that kind of thing. And then, kind of around the mid-campaign, I'm going to switch my focus over to medicine and try and keep the men that I have alive for an efficiency vector. But medicine is not super duper important at this part of the campaign. It is important, but there are stats that are more important. Because, at 10 points, you get 33% trickle back, which is phenomenal and absolutely worth it. If I can spare the campaign points, and I don't imagine that'll be the case until well after second run. So anyway, that's what I'm getting at is my hope, my thought in Legendary, especially with all the kills these units are getting in these battles, is that units are going to level up quickly. As long as I'm careful with them, units are going to level quickly, and we're going to get 2 stars quickly. We're going to get new generals hopefully quickly, more quickly than 1.24. All that kind of stuff. So, right around now is when I start thinking about taking offensive action. Up until this point in time, I have been reactive to the army. Why am I in a position where I feel like I can start taking the offensive? Because it's my perception that the enemy's gassed. It's my perception that the willingness to take it onto the offense has started to fall away from the enemy. And now they're running out of ammunition. Now they're tired. Now they're degraded. Their units are half as large as they used to be. And you know what? So are mine in terms of the AI units. Like, look at Palantir. He's down to 33 men. He's got 2 guns working. But that's fine, you know? I'm utilizing these units to fight because I need to. And we're gaining great stats on my units. I'm letting them do the fighting because honestly they don't carry over. As far as I'm concerned, their war ends today, right? Like, that's not the way that you should think about it when you're trying to roleplay, but that's exactly what's happening. Their war ends at this battle. These units don't matter tomorrow. So I can grind them down as much as I want, and I need to protect and preserve 1st, 2nd, 3rd infantry, 1st and 2nd artillery, so forth and so on. So you transition to the offense when the enemy is not breathing down your neck and threatening to overwhelm your lines. The second you have the opportunity to seize the initiative, you should think about trying. Don't expose yourself. Don't weaken your line. Take something ancillary, like in my instance, the 2 versions of Steward that came along with us as Cav. I could spare 2 units of Dragoons. They're not really doing anything for my defensive efforts anyway, so as far as I'm concerned, they're, you know, nice to have. I'll live without them. It's okay if they die. But they can have a huge, disproportionate to their size, destabilizing effect on the Union, because they can start white shielding these cannon units. They can start scooping up supply wagons. You see one of these brigades of theirs, I think Burnside, is flashing the ammo warning, like it's running out of ammo. Now, how exactly my dudes know that in the heat of battle, hell if I know, but we do, because the game tells us. So they're running out of bullets, they're tired, they're not as eager to charge into combat. All of this tells me that the opportunity to seize the initiative exists. It's there. It's time for me to go on the offensive. Now, additionally, I know in a few minutes the game will tick over to the next phase of the battle, and we're going to get a lot of reinforcements, and we can actually have the weight of troops to transition into the offense, and the Union is tapped out. The Union's not in a position to continue the attack because they don't have any more forces. They played their hand too early. So look for conditions kind of like this when you're playing. When you're playing First Manassas, or you're playing Stones River, or you're playing Shiloh, look for a moment like this when the AI is not charging anymore. When they've been charging the entire battle and they're not charging anymore. That's your chance. That's your time to shine. That's your time to take... Oh, shit. Give me a sec. Oh, boy. So there's a moment here where I was freaking out. Their cavalry unit charged Stewards, but the melee formula in this game is such that 2 units working against 1 always, for the most part, win. I don't know why that is, but basically if you can go into a combat with a numerical advantage, not actually in the number of men, but in the number of units, you will come out on top more often than not. So we get Johnston's division here as reinforcements for the last phase of Henry Hill, or for the last phase of Manassas. And so what I do is I detach 2 brigades. Well, it ends up being 3 because 1 split, but 2 brigades to cross on the other river and cross over Stone's Bridge in the same manner that the Union did. And they're going to be a portion of the force that kind of caves in the Union left, Confederate right. their purpose is essentially to cave that side of the army in and allow me to transition fully on the offensive. Some of those troops are detached to the middle, and I believe one brigade is detached to support the Confederate left, Union right. So Johnston's division is being split up, but that's because I need him in different places. I need his troops in different places, his individual battle groups. So essentially each of them is shoring up part of a line, but in different places. And in fairness, actually Johnston really isn't shoring up the line. Johnston's transitioning onto offense almost immediately. He's being deployed to the flank in every instance. It's just kind of where in the flank he goes. So I believe Smith is going to my far left. I believe Koch and Ewell are going to my mid-right. And I didn't catch the name of the units going to my extreme right. But they are. They're going to my extreme right. And now, back to Stuart. We're riding down the cav unit because this is legendary. And the second I break contact, they're going to rally again, as I've seen a couple times. So even though my dudes are exhausted, even though my dudes are not really melee dudes, they're not really like optimized for this role, I cannot give the cavalry battalion a chance to breathe, because if I do, they're just going to be back in my rear again. So I have to ride them down until they're dead, which is another, I think, tactical maxim that is different from other versions of this game, but is definitely true at the legendary difficulty level. You have to keep going until they're dead. You have to keep going until the unit shatters or surrenders or, whatever. And that's interesting, and it's not the case at Major General, it's not the case at Colonel for sure, it's not the case at Brigadier. It's absolutely the case at Legendary. So what I'm going to do is, I had the intention of using the two versions of Stuart to take out the Union artillery on the right. But at this point in time, Johnston's troops are close enough to being in position that I don't feel as if I need them there anymore. And now I want to have them destabilize things on the left. Confederate left, Union right. And this is when I realized, oh crap, they still have a big unit. Look at that, Franks. He hasn't even been in the fight yet. I've never seen Franks in the fight. And he's got 3,200 dudes and he's just ready to go. What's up? I've got Smith and I've got 3rd Infantry, and then we've got Wilcox caught in the middle. So things are going really well in the flow of the battle. The addition of Johnston's troops really do make a big difference in terms of the ability of the Confederate Army to kind of finally begin to think about outmaneuvering the foe. I run Smith into the woods here. I neglect, because I think I should have forgotten, remembered to be like, oh, actually I should put Smith on hold your fire, right? I should have had him run and then hold his fire until he got into the woods there, and then have him start trading fire with Wilcox. And you know what? Actually, I guess I realized Koch and Ewell are in fact going to support the Confederate left, not re-support the middle, which may not need it, frankly. So we have an abortive charge here from Sherman that gets canceled pretty quickly, pretty easily. The cancel charge button kind of really, well, not button, the fallback button, that if you do it right can cancel the charge, goes a long way towards making some of these battles possible. So we do that. We start trying to shoot at Griffin. Griffin has to waste time turning to face. It's excellent. It's a great opportunity. We have Cook and Ewell coming online against Wilcox, who's also currently routing in the river. And so that frees up 3rd Infantry to try and cross and provide crossways fire on Porter. So this is another opportunity, another chance for my units to really clean up and support the rest of the army, who's just kind of their whole objective is to stand there and take shots. Because hey, the AI is kind of turning into a last minute attack here. We got Porter coming down to attack, but at the same time, Griffin and Ricketts have both stopped shooting to try and reposition themselves. And this is an opportunity, an excellent opportunity for me to get my guys online. Here we go, another charge. This time again, it's just gonna be thrown back. Like, even if they do make contact, I'm not as worried about 2,000 men, because I've got 3 units I could easily charge into the equation, along with my Napoleons in a flank position. We just tear them up, basically. So at this point in time, we kind of have a calm before the storm, a moment to breathe. The cavalry is still being tasked with taking, distracting their artillery and disrupting their rear, and, all the things that basically I use carbine cav to do. But otherwise, I'm letting Johnston's dudes kind of get across the river. I'm trying to, they've committed Franklin to the fight, and I feel like it's too little too late. Like, I think Franklin in the second phase, in addition to Sherman, in addition to Keyes, holy crap, I don't know if I would have been able to fight that back. But Franklin here by himself, I'm not that worried, right? So we've got Ricketts in perpetual white shield, which is good. I think I make the mistake here of trying to charge into melee, and that's maybe premature. It's a full-size unit that, even though it's white shielding, is not, helpless. And then to support Johnston's troops, Holmes and Bonham coming across the river, I also send Hampton's Legion across them a ford. And the reason I do that is 1st and 2nd Infantry are currently engaged with Franklin, trying to keep him busy. And Keyes is coming in, Burnside's coming in. Like, there's plenty of Union troops still on the right that have plenty of fight left in them. So this is a real slugfest. It's just a real slugfest. And I tell you, I can't wait to fight these bigger battles with armies completely of my design, because this battle would be very different with a 100% fiasco designed army on the field. I believe the next big fight we have left ahead of us is Shiloh, which is another fight that is dictated largely by the fact that a significant portion of my army is AI. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the units are larger than these by a pretty healthy margin. So that should help some. But how much, right? How much? Here we go. So Hampton, Bonham, Holmes, they're all coming online. Bonham and Hampton both have stars and some stats. I believe Holmes is largely new. And so we're just crushing the Union army at this point. It's the wrap-up phase. Broadly speaking, during play, I felt comfortable the entire time. And I had experienced a lot of frustration at my last attempt at playing this battle, because it just didn't seem to matter what I did. Now, in that battle, I had 1/3, one artillery unit, a 3-incher, 1 unit of snipers, and 3 units of infantry. And the infantry were all fine. They got plenty of kills, and they did great. The snipers, who had hunters, I believe, couldn't kill anything fast enough. The hunters weren't accurate enough, and everything else. The 3-inchers didn't kill infantry fast enough in the same manner. And so I found myself again and again and again throwing everything I had at trying to kill these monster 4,000-man infantry brigades. I just couldn't do it. I just didn't have enough. Beef, right? Like, I didn't have enough counter-infantry work. So one of the lessons from that failed attempt, and that really paid huge dividends in this, is that what did I say in Fredericksburg? That the infantry exists. It doesn't do most of the killing, but it does do most of the dying. And all of the arms that exist to do the real killing only get to work when the infantry provides them a solid foundation to do that work. I forgot that message. I forgot it again when I failed to beat Newport News. And I got fancy, and I spent all this time taking out their artillery, and I didn't have an answer for their infantry, which is ultimately what destroyed me. But I got their artillery. I killed their cannon. I killed their cavalry. Like, they didn't have any support stuff. No skirmishers left. No cannon left. No anything left. But they had crap loads of infantry left. And the end result of that was that it was able to brute force its way into my lines and crush me. Now I killed hundreds of them on the way in. 6-pounders are weak and crappy, but in large enough number they get the job done. Infantry did good work too. But 4,000 man brigades, when there's 8 of them, and you're just not killing them anywhere near fast enough, start to add up real quick. So, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the point I'm trying to make, right? Like, it's just that I'd forgotten one of the core lessons of the game. One of the core lessons of my personal school of warfare is that, I say combined arms is the only way forward. And I had neglected my base. I had neglected a foundation. And I had a bunch of fancy cool shit, but I didn't have, the foundation that makes it all work. And by comparison, this battle doesn't have any sexy shit. There's nothing fancy about what I'm doing here. It's meat and potatoes, bread and butter, just work. Worker models, worker units. This is a theory of force construction, game theory. And I utilize it in Warhammer, I utilize it in War Machine, I utilize it in Magic when I'm building decks. And the rule is boys, not toys. Fancy gimmicks tend to punch above their weight class, but fancy gimmicks, if they don't have the support or the foundation, don't have the basis to work. And I mean, that's exactly what happened here. In this battle, there's limited fancy gimmicks. The most fanciest of gimmicks is my 14-gun 3-incher unit has a little bit of reach out and touch someone potential. That's it, right? Like, that's the fanciest of gimmick. Maybe the way that I'm utilizing Stuart to run down cannon, except for the fact that it wouldn't work. Utilizing Stuart in that manner wouldn't work if he didn't double one small unit of carbine cav would be insufficient and ineffective in the role, because I'm reliant on the fact that the game rewards units for doubling up to let Stuart do what he does. So if I only have one Stuart in this battle, what he ends up doing here is dismounting, fighting on foot, and supporting 3rd Infantry on the far left of the Confederate position. And that's interesting, right? Like, that's what the variables in this game, the variability mechanic, lets you play the battle differently based on whether or not things split. And it works just the same for the AI, right? Like, obviously you need to respond differently if the AI has more or fewer splits as well. But boys not toys, right? So I think that's going to be kind of the focus of this campaign, is building an army with a solid foundation. I got really cutesy on the tail end of the Confederate campaign on Major General at 1.24. I had very infantry light brigades that were support heavy, and that I feel is probably a mistake. Especially at Legendary. Legendary is a beast that is almost certainly going to require an entirely different league of durability out of my army. I think in Major General, in the 1.24 mod, you could get away with a certain level of fancy shit once you had a minimum basis for your army. And I mean, that is true for any game, obviously, but I think the tolerance for it is much lower, or much higher, actually, I guess is the word I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to make is I think you need to be much more secure with basic infantry, and those basic infantry units need to be larger, and you need to just really focus on your meat and potatoes units, because without them, your dragoons and your fancy artillery and your flank and your skirmishers, they're not going to do anything. So let's talk about the battle. It's going on the screen. I'm crossing the river and I'm attacking the Union rear. I'm attacking Franklin, Burnside, and 2nd New York in the rear, and then I'm attacking them in the front with 2nd Infantry and Jackson's Combined Division and Hampton's Legion and a bunch of artillery and units. And I'm attacking them that way, even at point-blank range, even when it's dangerous for Bonham and dangerous for Holmes. I'm doing that because they will be far more likely to rout if they're attacked from multiple sides like that. I accept that I'm going to get shot a little bit on the way in, and I press the attack because it just caves their entire middle position in. And unfortunately, we get what I call the squirter in the army, which is if you attack a fixed position and you don't wrap everybody up, you could, it's kind of like squeezing a balloon, right? Like a little bit of it can kind of squeeze out, and that's a squirter. So we have 2nd New York and potentially Burnside attempting to squeeze themselves out of the vice that is my army, closing in on it. Additionally, in the same way, on the middle / the Confederate left, take your pick, we have Sherman and Porter and Franklin, and to an extremely lesser degree Keyes, trying to squeeze out of this death corridor and trying to assemble up towards the farm on the hill there. I don't remember. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure they're going to manage to make it work. They're going to manage to get out. But not without taking just catastrophic losses in the process, and not without getting battered to hell and back again. And, probably losing officers, probably losing, condition and morale and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, like, they're going to get out just because I can't kill 8,000 men quick enough, 7,000 men quick enough, but they're no longer seriously threatening the flag, and I'm able to just kind of leave this ersatz group on the flag of, for lack of a better word, leftovers. Units that are too battered to meaningfully come on the offensive with me, but that could probably, as a collection of units, throw off an attack on the flag. They're going to be the ones that I think I leave behind, and then the remainder, for sure, 1st Infantry and ideally 2nd and 3rd, will go on the offensive, because now I'm basically in kill farming mode. And the best part is, I've got an hour and change left. So there's the units that we leave behind to defend. Jackson in particular, who's taken horrendous casualties. And then my troops, who are going to go on the offensive here, who have good condition, who have great weapons, who have, who have nothing but great stats to gain, they're going to go on the offensive. Additionally, we've suffered a lot of officer casualties that have proved to be woundings. So that doesn't really do us a lot of good right now, as you can imagine. But at the tail end of Shiloh, when the army needs to grow beyond one corps to, I think for Gaines Mill, you need 10 units in the second unit. You don't need, you could bring one, I suppose, but you get what I'm getting at, right? Like, we're going to need to expand the army again for Gaines and Malvern Hill. And I'm pretty sure we're going to need like 10 new units all of a sudden out of nowhere. Well, hey, guess what? We got a bunch of units a bunch of officers that got wounded. There's another one, Colonel E. Smith. And that is just phenomenal for the army. It's a great break. It's just good luck, essentially. Again, doesn't do us a lot of good for Shiloh because these guys are going to be on the bench like all the way through Shiloh. But it does mean that we're set for the middle campaign, right? Like we've got a solid basis to go to Gaines and Malvern Hill. We've got a solid basis upon which to build there for ultimately towards Second Bull Run. Like we're on the right track is essentially kind of what I'm getting at in terms of our officer corps. So yeah, let's go clean up, and there's not a whole lot of video left. If you've made it through this long, thanks for checking it out. This has been a fascinating battle. There's a lot of really cool stuff that we've done, and it's just really making me kind of respect the threat that Legendary faces, the danger that units at this difficulty pose. You got to be very careful on the approach, and I haven't even begun to really see significant counter battery efforts. Like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do when the Union starts tripping over themselves with 10-pound parrots when they've just got more good, I hope not, more Whitworths than you can shake a fist at. Like, what's going to happen when that shit starts happening? Because it's coming. It's coming sooner or later. So yeah, watch out. All I can say about that. And we're going to run these down and do all that kind of fun stuff. So let's take a look at the channel going forward. What have I learned as far as the army is concerned? I think I've talked at great length in this video about what I learned in the lead up to First Bull Run. And that's that I have to basically relearn the game all over again, as if I didn't already know that. I had a suspicion, right, that Legendary was going to be a different beast than Major General. It's surprising how much of a change it makes. I was not expecting the change to be as significant as it's proved to be. So, yeah, we need to kind of sort of relearn the game. We need to really focus on a solid foundation before we ever try and think about luxury items. So that's going to be infantry and artillery. That's going to be the number one focus. Everything else is secondary. So I think the next battle I've got coming up after this is I think it's supply raid. I think the next battle, right, and that is my number one favorite mission in the game, because it's just like it's so classic. It's so classic Confederacy, where what am I trying to say here? Historically, their logistics were charitably not the best, right? I think that's probably the most polite way to put that. Historically, their logistics were not the best, and there was, right, wrong, or indifferent, a reliance, maybe not at this stage of the war, but certainly eventually, on captured Union equipment, especially artillery pieces, to kind of keep the army in the field. It would not be uncommon to see Confederates wearing blue pants, Confederates wearing Union crossbelts, Confederates, carrying Union rifles, wearing Union bullet bags. What's the not the word? That's not the word I'm talking about. The thing they have on their side that carries all the mini balls. Powder cases, maybe? I don't know. Whatever. You get what I'm getting at, right? We get really lucky here and capture all of Franklin, and then we end up capturing Porter as well. I'm pretty sure. We just get a lot of really lucky surrenders on the tail end here, which I'm not terribly expecting, but it works out. So, anyway, the point is I'm going to probably bump. I think you get 14 units in the, because it's like it's 10 in the base game, and so I think now we get 12 probably in the rebound spot. We're going to be bumping, we're going to add probably 2 new units of artillery, 300 or 400 units of infantry, and then 1-ish unit of cavalry, and that's it. And I think traditionally I've tried to make 2 units of cavalry going into that mission because I want to snag the supply wagon ASAP, and I just don't have the time. Or I don't have the foundation, I don't think, to do it. So we do some cleanup here, and this is pretty much it. I have started a new job. It's a good job. I'm very excited about it, but it's also a lot of work. It's keeping me more busy than I was expecting. And what that means is, I think I'm still figuring out what day of the week is going to be the best day to try and do a release. I had been, for the last little bit, towards the tail end of the summer semester, kind of doing Sundays, and then it was Wednesdays last semester. We had one of the units as stewardship. And I think it's probably gonna push to the middle of the week again, now that I'm back into the swing of things for work week. I know that seems counterintuitive, but you have to think like, he has a new job and he's busting his ass at work. Why is he playing video games and releasing YouTube videos on the weird week? Typically what's going to happen is I'm going to play this on the weekend, and I'm not going to have a chance to record audio until the week, the week proper. So we walk away with 6,000 casualties. How many of those are mine? I don't know. It's probably not that many, which is great. So it's, 1,000 maybe? That's 600. It's maybe 800 are mine, which is great. So I really shouldn't complain too much, right? Like I really shouldn't bitch. We gain a whole bunch of officers. We gain a bunch of weapons, a crap load of Springfield 55s, which I've made it pretty clear I'm not really a big fan of because they're not accurate. We also get a shoot load of 41s, and we get some other good weapons and that kind of thing. So we get that. We get a bunch of new recruits, which is awesome. They've upped the cap, so over 1,000 is possible now, depending on how many you recover, which is great. We get Tom Jackson. We, interestingly enough, get Tom Jackson again because he was wounded in this battle, so we're going to have 2 Tom Jacksons. Yeah, I think we put at least 1 point into AO because we need to for Shiloh, and I think I ultimately put a 2nd point into AO here because I'm going to need it again for Shiloh, right? Like, so I know I have to get to AO 5 or 6 before Shiloh. The question is, when, right? Like, I have enough for ambush convoy. Supply rate was what I thought it was. We have enough for ambush convoy. So I can get away with AO, whatever I've got right now. 12. You get 12 units. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what my thought process is in terms of the career point here. It's been long enough that unfortunately I forget what I did. I think probably I just hedge my bets against the fact that I'm going to need it up to that level at some juncture anyway, so I may as well do it. Yeah, so we have 2 different Tom Jacksons. That's always a good time. Bunch of colonels, a bunch of officers. We're in a great place. We're going to be doing really well at the tail end of Shiloh, depending on how many officers die there, obviously. Anyway, like I said, new job, tight schedule. Play over the weekends, probably record this going into the work week, like Wednesday, middle of the week, when things are kind of died down, I guess you could say. So I have a little bit more downtime. Now's the time for it, right? So I think I bumped these units back up. Yeah, a little bit of cleanup. But a lot of this is going to end up happening in the next video, the tweaking or whatever, the next camp video. And that's pretty much all she wrote. Is there's a little tweak left, a little bit of tweaking left, but we're not going to do all of it here. And I will see you guys in the next one. This is Fiasco, signing out.